Hey everyone, welcome to week three of Sustainability in Society. So this week's theme is the market society. If you go to the week three folder, and this I do this for every week. If you go to the overview, there's actually a review. It's kind of a brief review of the previous week's content. So I do like to address that. This is like a high level, pretty quick review. Obviously, we've already gone over this, but I think it's good to hear this thing, this kind of stuff again, because it is something that we don't just sort of like leave it behind, especially this first couple of weeks. It's foundational to basically everything else we do this semester. So a brief review of last week. Remember, this was sustainability and systems thinking. So the sort of, I guess, the short summary is if we want to evaluate the sustainability of something we see in the world, something that you do in your own life, something that's going on in the economy or wherever, right? So you want to evaluate the sustainability. And remember, the sort of overarching goal here is to help you develop this sustainability mindset. Because there is no one definition of sustainability, but there is kind of a sustainability way of thinking, or what I call the sustainability mindset. And so the first thing you want to ask yourself is, can we keep doing this thing for the indefinite future? Okay, so if you say no to that question, it's not sustainable. The second part is a little more complicated, and you want to sort of look at the sustainability framework, which we tend to use this 3E framework. So remember the 3Es are economy, environment, and equity. Environment is pretty straightforward, so I'm not going to go over that. Remember, economy is not just can we keep doing it? Does it make a profit? It's really, does it contribute to a high quality economy that's working for most people or everyone, ideally? So does it promote good jobs, living wages, and so forth, right? So are people thriving in the economy, not just stuck doing this like drudgery just to make money? It's like, do we have a good economy? And then equity, remember, is not equality. So equality is everyone has the same of everything. That's just not realistic. There's going to be some inequality in the world, and that's okay in certain aspects. Remember, we talked about there are things that should be everyone should be absolutely equal. A really good example is in legally, right, in the eyes of the law, we should all be treated equally. Obviously, that's not the case, but in a perfect world, we would be equal in that way. So equity is more about opportunity. Okay, so do people have equal opportunity to access these things that contribute to a good life or a high quality of life? Good education, healthcare, clean neighborhoods, eco political power, and so forth. Okay, so equity is about opportunity, and whether or not people take advantage of those opportunities, not everybody's going to be equal because there's different ability to take advantage of opportunities. So, but the fact is, if the opportunities are there, that's equity. Okay, so you want to ask yourself those questions. Can we keep doing it for the indefinite future? And does it meet is it environmentally, economically sustainable and promotes equity? Okay, so we also talked a lot about systems thinking. Remember, systems thinking is all about interconnection. So we don't want to just think of things in isolation. We want to think how they relate to other things. And we talked about sort of the upstream and downstream aspects of that. The upstream refers to things that happen before. Okay, so upstream, think of like a stream, right? The stream flows through. The upstream part is like the part that's flowing toward you. And so you can sort of visualize that flow of things that's leading up to a certain thing. Okay, so we want to think about the upstream relationships, and most often we think about this if we are trying to solve some sort of problem, like we're going to look at a lot of sustainability problems this semester. How do we get clean water? How do we address biodiversity? How do we solve climate change? Like all that. And so the upstream part of systems thinking is what is causing this thing to happen. So climate change, very complex issue. There's a lot of things that contribute to climate change. But if we want to solve the climate change issue, we need to look upstream and figure out, okay, what is contributing to climate change and how do we address those? So if we want to solve problems, we have to look at those things. The downstream side of systems thinking is what are the impacts of this thing? Okay. So again, think about the flow. You're flowing, a river flows, and the downstream part is what happens after where you are. And so the downstream impacts, and we'll take climate change as another example, we want to look at both the impacts on current generations. And so in sustainability, we really want to think globally. We want to just expand as much as possible our perspective so we can think about what's happening globally. So what are the climate change impacts of people all over the world? The second really important way to think about downstream is what's going to happen in the future. And that relates very uh, like concretely with the notion of intergenerational equity, right? Intergenerational equity, which is what are the impacts on future generations? Intergeneration means other generate across generations, so future generations. And that fits really closely with the Brundtland Commission's definition, which you should basically have memorized, and that is what are the what are the impacts on uh, the current and future generations of actions we take today. And if you remember, that was from the Brundtland Commission, which is this big United Nations commission that was put together in the mid 1980s, where sort of the first time every country in the world came together to figure out how can we develop a more sustainable, they refer to sustainable development. Okay. So all that was in your reading and recordings and so forth, but you should recognize that term, the Brundtland Commission, because it is the most commonly referred to definition of sustainability. Again, there's no single definition of sustainability. I apologize. One of the drawbacks of recording this at home is we have a dog that, heaven forbid, there's people actually walking in front of our house on a nice sunny day. Um, And so the Brundtland Commission, if there is one definition that is used more than any other for sustainability, it is this Brundtland Commission definition. If you talk to anybody in the sustainability field, they will know what the Brundtland Commission definition is. They'll know what the Brundtland Commission is, and so forth. Um, and then another really, really important concept we looked at was ecological footprint, which, if you remember, is the area of land and water that's needed to continuously support a given lifestyle. Okay, so we looked at our own ecological footprint, which you calculate it and you get an area of land and water that you need to support yourself. But then if you combine any number of people, you can get the total ecological footprint. And the really big one we looked at is if you if everyone on the planet lived a certain way, how many planets would we need to support them? Really helpful concept. And then lastly, we talked a little bit about the idea of non-market value. And the idea here is that most of the time when you think about like how valuable is something or what is the value of that thing, normally you think, okay, what's the price? And is it really worth a lot of money or not too much money? But it's really important to point out that a lot of things that are very valuable don't actually have a price associated with them. Think about freedom and democracy and strong family relationships and so forth. All of those things are really important to people living a good life, um, but they don't necessarily have a price associated with them. Okay, so hopefully, after going through the content, you have a pretty good foundation um, that contributes to a sustainability mindset, and it'll help you think about sustainability as we look at more specific issues moving forward.